In 2003, British cycling was an afterthought. Since 1908, British riders had managed just one Olympic gold medal. No British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. One leading European manufacturer reportedly refused to sell them its best bikes, worried that seeing British riders use the equipment would damage the brand. Then British Cycling hired a new performance director. His name was Dave Brailsford, and instead of searching for one dramatic breakthrough, a revolutionary training program, a miracle diet, or a genius coach, he focused on something much smaller. He broke cycling down into every conceivable component, not just training and nutrition, the way riders washed their hands to reduce the risk of illness, the type of pillow and bedding that helped them sleep best, even the inside of the team truck, which was painted white so mechanics could spot dust that might interfere with bike maintenance. Each improvement was tiny. Change any one of them, and you would probably never notice the difference in a race. Brailsford's idea was to collect hundreds of these small gains and let them compound. 5 years later, British riders dominated the Beijing Olympics, taking nearly 60% of the gold medals available in road and track cycling. 4 years after that, in London, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. A program once known for decades of underperformance had become the dominant force in world cycling. Nobody became twice as talented. Nobody discovered a secret training method. They simply improved by about 1%, over and over, in places too small to attract much attention. Eventually, the accumulated result became impossible to ignore. That is the central argument of atomic habits, and once you understand it, much of the conventional advice about changing your life begins to look backwards. Most people begin with a goal: lose 20 pounds, write a book, build a business. They set the target, feel motivated, and push as hard as they can for a few weeks. Then life becomes busy. Motivation fades, and before long, they are back where they started. The goal itself is not the problem. The problem is that a goal does not tell you what to do differently tomorrow morning. Winning athletes and losing athletes often want exactly the same thing. They both want to win. The difference is the system they follow every day. That is why Brailsford's approach worked. The gold medal was the outcome. His attention stayed on the process that could eventually produce it. So when progress stalls, a better question is not simply, what result do I want? It is, what small process, repeated consistently, would make that result more likely? A business does not grow because its owner wants it to grow. It grows through actions such as spending 15 focused minutes on outreach every morning, including the mornings when motivation is low. But even a good system is not always enough. Many people try to change their behavior without changing the way they see themselves. Think about someone trying to stop smoking. When offered a cigarette, one person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Another says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Same refusal, completely different foundation. The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who is resisting a cigarette. The second person sees the refusal as a natural expression of who they are. This is one of the deepest ideas in the book. Lasting habits are easier to maintain when they support the identity you believe you have. Behavior that constantly conflicts with your self-image is difficult to sustain. Behavior that confirms your identity feels more natural. So instead of beginning with, "I want to run more," you begin with, "I am becoming a runner." Then even one lap around the block becomes meaningful. Every repetition is more than progress toward an outcome. It is evidence, a small vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Knowing that still leaves one problem unsolved. Once identity is in place, the next question becomes practical. How do you build a habit that still works when you are busy, tired, distracted, or unmotivated? Every habit follows the same basic loop. First, something cues the behavior. Then you anticipate a reward. You respond with an action. Finally, the result reinforces or weakens the loop. That means habits can be shaped from 4 directions. First, make the cue obvious. Second, make the habit attractive. Third, make the action easy. And finally, make the reward satisfying. The most underestimated rule may be the third: make it easy. People often overestimate how motivated they will feel in the future. and underestimate how quickly friction can stop them. One of the simplest solutions in Atomic Habits is the 2-minute rule. Reduce the first version of a habit until it takes less than 2 minutes. Do not begin with, read for 30 minutes. Begin with, read 1 page. Do not begin with, work out for an hour. Begin with, put on my training shoes. At the beginning, intensity matters far less than showing up. The first version of the habit should be so easy that there is almost no reason to skip it. The point is not to stay at 2 minutes forever. The point is to master the act of starting. Once the beginning becomes automatic, the behavior can grow. But the 2-minute rule can only carry you so far on its own. You do not always need more discipline. Sometimes you need clearer cues, less friction, and a more immediate reward. The environment around you can often do more than willpower ever will. At Massachusetts General Hospital, researchers changed the way drinks were arranged in the cafeteria. They did not give people lectures about nutrition. They did not ask them to become more disciplined. They simply placed bottled water in more visible and convenient locations. Over the following 3 months, soda sales fell by more than 11%, while bottled water sales increased by more than 25%. The people had not suddenly developed stronger willpower. The healthier option had simply become easier to see and easier to choose. The same principle works at home. Place a guitar in the middle of the room instead of hiding it in a closet, and you are more likely to pick it up. Keep unhealthy food out of sight, and you are less likely to eat it automatically. Your environment quietly shapes what feels normal, convenient, and available. But there is another reason people abandon good habits. Progress often remains invisible for much longer than they expect. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a room that is slowly becoming warmer. The temperature rises, 25 degrees, 26, 27, 31. The ice still looks exactly the same. Then the room reaches 32 degrees, and the ice begins to melt. The change appears sudden, but the earlier increase in temperature was not wasted. Every degree contributed to the final result. The effect simply remained invisible until the system crossed a threshold. Habits often work the same way. You exercise for several weeks and see little physical change. You publish repeatedly and attract almost no attention. You save money, but the balance still feels small. The system may be working exactly as intended, yet invisible progress feels almost identical to no progress at all. That is where many people stop. They assume the effort is failing because the result has not appeared. But the result may still be forming beneath the surface. The work is accumulating. The results are frozen, not gone. This is why it is dangerous to judge a habit only by the visible outcome it has produced so far. A better question is whether the system is moving in the right direction. Are you making the useful behavior easier? Are you reducing the friction around starting? Are you repeating the action often enough for it to become part of your identity? Atomic Habits ultimately reduces lasting change to one powerful idea. Your life is shaped less by occasional dramatic decisions than by the small actions you repeat. Those actions become systems. The systems reinforce an identity, and the results compound in a direction that may remain invisible for a long time, until eventually they become undeniable. That is how an underperforming cycling program became dominant. Not through one heroic transformation, through hundreds of small improvements repeated long enough to matter. So consider one final question. If every action you took today was a vote for the person you are becoming, what did today's vote say about you? Atomic Habits goes much deeper than the ideas covered here, and it is worth reading if this changed the way you think about progress. If you want more books distilled into the ideas that matter most, subscribe.